Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of A Little Perspective Season 3, where we will be hearing from our various authors and advocates for the disability community. Unfortunately, my co-host Angela could not be available to do the recording with me tonight, but she has given me the reins to run it myself. And thank you, Angela, for putting your trust in me. I know this will be a great episode, and we miss you. I am here today with my friend and colleague, Sheila Bailey. Sheila and I have are currently on the Diversity Executive Leadership Program for the class of 2023. It's a prestigious program for association professionals from marginalized communities and that provide a pathway for us to grow into executive leadership roles. I love the program and I love being on it with Sheila. And I'm excited to share this evening with Sheila as our guest. She is an educator and a teacher and works for the Virginia Council of Administrators of Special Education. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Sheila to introduce herself. Sheila, thanks for coming on our podcast. Please tell us about yourself.
Thank you, Samitha. This is a wonderful opportunity to get a chance to talk about an area that I am really, really passionate about. I have over 40 years experience in this field, from classroom teaching to central office administration to state administration to my current role as the executive director for the Virginia Council of Administrators of Special Education. So that's my background in this field. I have family connections to special education. I have family connections to general education and gifted ed. So I do love exceptionalities, though. That's my heart, that's my passion, and I love to advocate for persons with disabilities because I've seen what can happen when we have appropriate services delivered to individuals. They can flourish. It really makes a difference. They may not have the same life that others may envision, but they can have a productive, fulfilling life based on the supports that they receive.
100%. Thanks, Sheila. You are so right. If we have the right appropriate systems in place, if we just have the right resources allocated, if we just have the right accommodations, accessibility needs, however, whatever we may need, we deserve to live a productive, fulfilling life, like you said. So you mentioned that you've had over 40 years of experience in the education field. That is a very long time, and that's a very fulfilling and rewarding time, I bet. Would you be able to start from the beginning and share with our audience, how did you get involved in the disability community? Like, can you share a little bit about your journey in the education realm?
Sure. I come from a family. Now, my parents were not university educated people. They were very smart and intelligent people. And since I was the oldest of four, it was always a given that I was going to go to college. My only sister was a person who was born with a disability. So very, very early, I learned about the disability world as it was back in the 60s. And trust me, it was a very different world. But there was one thing that always stood out to me about my sister's journey and my mother's journey and my parents' journey. And first of all, understanding, accepting, realizing what challenges lay ahead for my sister. And I always remember the day my mom went to what was an eligibility at that time. It looks nothing like what it is now. And she came home and she broke down in tears because someone had to sit her down and tell her, you have a child with a disability. And it was hard for her. That imprinted on me for the remainder of my life, what that looked like, what that felt like. And I always wanted to go into a field where I could be the person to deliver that message, but deliver it from a perspective that I knew what it looked like on the other side, and I knew what it felt like. And no, it's never going to be a happy, jolly celebration, but it can be a message of hope and a message to say, you have a whole team behind you. You have a support team. I remember my sister had teachers. She had teachers back then, and granted, they were not educated in all of the techniques and modifications, the advanced research that we have now, but they were amazing. They were amazing teachers. And they worked with my sister, and she passed away a couple of years ago.
Mm.
But instead of her having the predicted 18 years, she saw her 60th birthday. Because
Wow.
of, I would say, I'm a religious person. I'm a faith-based person, so I believe that there was a blessing in her longevity. However, I also feel that people were placed in her life that made her longevity a reality. And as much as that hurt, it was a celebration in knowing that she had had such a long, productive life, and she was happy.
All that matters, right?
She was happy. She's a happy person.
Oh,
She would, when my mom passed away, I became her legal guardian. And she would always tell me, Sheila, I'm going to let you do this for me, and I'm going to let you get this for me. Oh, thank you for that opportunity and that privilege. I
right.
wish I had people that I could let do things for me. But anyway, she was a happy person, and that led me to a place where I wanted those outcomes for others. No, she did not follow me to college. No, she did not. She didn't have 40 years of professional experience when she passed, but she lived a life that was best for her. And she was able to maximize her potential. And that's my mission. That's what drives me. Sometimes I truly say that I get frustrated, I get angry. I don't like to see anybody mistreated, or um, people to make assumptions. Well, they can't do this because. Well, maybe they can't, but at least you can give them the opportunity to try, and you can give them other ideas and suggestions for what they other things they can try. But those of us who consider ourselves able, how many times have we failed? I
Hmm.
have. I definitely have failed at some things miserably, but that didn't mean that I wasn't supported in my effort to try. And that's really my mission, is to open up those opportunities and support our young people, and support the people, with VCAs, we call it VCAs. We support the people who support the families.
Right. Right. That's how it is in the association world, right? Like
Mhm.
we're not necessarily providing the direct services, but we help the people do their jobs better so they can bring that positive impact. And I just am so humbled to hear that's this your story, Sheila. Just your sister, it sounds like your sister gave filled your life with joy,
Sure.
and her life was beautiful, and that she was so loved. And to have you as her advocate, to have her mom, to have your mom and like support system and just teachers, I'm telling you, they will make a forever impact on your life. Like just they, like you said, they don't have to have all the information or know everything, and that it'll come to them, right? That it will come as a learning process. But just to be kind,
Mm-hmm.
just to be kind and to see you, to see us as a person, to believe in us
Mm-hmm.
and like love us for who we are. That's life changing.
It is. It makes a world of difference. And my remaining brother and I, we were the ones that, were here when she left us.
Mm-hmm.
And we we talk about her all the time. We keep her memory
Yeah.
alive. And
Yeah.
um, so I use that situation quite often to let people know that no, it may not always turn out the way you want it. Um, and one of my favorite writings is Welcome to Holland. Read that.
Okay. Yeah,
Yes.
what is it?
Google it and read it.
Google it. Yeah, okay, Welcome
Yes,
to
Google
Holland.
it and read
Okay.
it. It is written from the perspective of a mom who thought she was having a normal, what we,
Normal.
yeah, but she did not. And I believe her last name is Kingsley, I believe. And if I remember her story correctly, she worked for Sesame Street.
Oh,
Yeah. And I use her story, I use her writing quite often in classes. And in fact, I read it at my sister's services.
oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It is one of my favorites because it describes everything that parents feel, in my opinion.
Wow. Yes. You hear that, viewers. Definitely check out Welcome to Holland, and we'll also put that in the comments
Mhm.
when in the episode. And thank you for sharing that, Sheila. And thank you again for sharing your beautiful story and about your sister. So you mentioned that this was in the 60s, correct? Like when you were growing up. So
Mhm.
do you have any memories of the civil rights movement, and especially like the sit-ins for people with disabilities when they were advocating, when they were really pushing for the equal rights and for civil rights, and when the ADA was signed? Do you have memories of that? And are you willing to share?
Yeah, definitely. I was at an HBCU, Virginia State, at the time,
Oh,
college.
awesome. Uh-huh.
Yes, in the 70s. And when yes, I have no age issues. I'm blessed to get
No,
here.
you're golden. You are blessed.
Yeah. I was actually in college at the time. So having the opportunity kind of be on the front line of some, not all, but some of the civil rights movement. I remember the signing of PL 94-142.
What is that?
That is the education for all individuals with disabilities. Education.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Okay. What did
Uh,
that entail?
that really opened the door and basically said it is illegal to not provide educational opportunities. That's like the hallmark of what we do. That's the law. And quite often, those of us in the field of special education refer to PL 94-142, public law. And that just opened the door to say, you are breaking the law if you do not provide educational services to all students with disabilities.
Love
Now,
it.
with any law, it goes through a lot of uh, revisions
Loopholes.
and updates, and it has been revised a few times. We're way behind right now, in fact, with because now it's IDEA. And,
Oh, okay. I'm familiar with that.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, now it's IDEA.
Okay.
And we have a lot of acronyms in special ed, so stop me.
Yep.
But that act is supported at the federal level, and each of the states have their own interpretation. Now, some states have it literal, it's word for word, just what you see. But you can do, as far as the states are concerned, you can do more than IDEA, you just can't do less. And in the state I'm in Virginia, we supersede IDEA in over 100 ways. But there are differences, there are nuances when you go from state to state. And so if you're the parent of a child with a disability, or if you're educator accepting a position in another state, you really need to familiarize yourself with that individual state's laws. Keeping in mind, it cannot be less, but it can always be more. And some states do more, some keep it the way it is. So it just depends.
Okay.
Mhm.
I'll look up what it's like for Illinois. I'm just thinking about how it's been for me growing up because I know I was a kid. I went to school in the 90s,
Mhm.
and my mom, she's my biggest advocate. She
Right.
fought for me to get to have my, accommodations, and having dwarfism. Some of the accommodations I had in school where I had step stools in my classroom. I had an extra set of books that I could keep at home. That way I don't have to carry them because it's
Right.
physically taxing. I
Mhm.
left early in classes, so I could have 5 extra minutes so I don't have to be in the crowds. The teacher, when I was little, like in my elementary school, my teacher would like come with me to go to the bathroom, and there would be a stool in the bathroom. So there were different examples, like different accommodations that were put in place for me. And I just remember um that the way that the treatment towards children with disabilities in schools have changed.
Mhm.
And now I know that there is an IEP, like the individual education plans that put in place, but it seemed like it varied from school to school. Like I was in the regular classes, but I was still able to take the special education bus because that bus dropped me off in front of my house. Like I didn't, and it had seat belts. The regular buses didn't have seat belts, and for safety, I needed to be dropped off in front of my house versus like a few blocks away. And so there were like different um it was need based, which is really good, but it just seems like with some other kids they kind of put the other disabled kids in a box, and they said okay, because of what their assumptions were, it was very dividing. It was very othering for a lot of other kids. So um, I wanted to get your insight on what have you seen in your work as an educator towards kids with disabilities, and how have things changed, and what other improvements could be made? Do you mind? I know it's a loaded question, but anything you can
Perfect. It's
share.
a very fair question, and
Mm-hmm.
one that should be asked of any person who presents themselves as an advocate for special education. I've seen it go from the class down the hall by the boiler room, the closet.
I know.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that those were examples. I've also seen the development of collaboration and inclusive classes. Um, I vividly remember my program at when I was working on my doctorate, And inclusive classes were just kind of getting started, not really, they had really not taken hold everywhere, and it was just emerging. Or maybe it was in the area I was in. I can't say for everybody, but I remember getting educated as to what that really meant. And one of the most eye-opening experiences I remember having at that school was they had invited Marilyn Friend, and she's a major researcher, author, and person who have thoroughly studied and given us, blessed us with information that have helped us to develop programs for persons with disabilities in general programs that they can flourish. And that was really my introduction to that level. Yes, we had come out of the closet down the hall by the boiler room, but we had not gotten to the point where you went everywhere and saw massive inclusion based on individual needs. Now, I will say that I fully understand that there's the IEP is based on the needs of the individual student. And maybe every child does not have the same need.
Exactly.
Yeah. So to just place a child in a program for social reasons, maybe that has some benefit, but we really need to be very cautious when we are developing IEPs, and we should look at the overall need of the child, whether it's best served 100% inclusive. Some of my colleagues will vehemently probably disagree with me and say that, oh, it has to be 100% all the time. But yeah, it nothing is 100% for every person all the time. I'm an individual, you're an individual, we have our own individual needs. But no one should ever be excluded from anything simply because they have a disability. We find every possible way of including that person that we possibly can, and being educated with their same age peers, and making sure that they get the services, and making sure that they get the accommodations, the modifications. I do want to say this, but when you were talking about your story, it sounds like you may have had a 504 plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? That's right. I had a 504
Yes.
plan, but I was
Yes.
gonna ask, like, I think was 50, what is the difference between 504 and IEP? Like, is that something, did they change, did that term change, or did 504s become IEPs, or are they two separate things?
They really are two separate things.
Okay.
Usually the special education, and I hesitate to say it sometimes, but um, in some schools you will find that it comes under the special education umbrella. Other schools you may find it under student services. It just depends on how it's set up. But 504, Section 504 is found in the Americans with Disabilities Act, which is primarily focused on making sure buildings are accessible, things like that.
Right.
The way that you get that 504 gets into education is that education is seen as a critical life function and skill. And that's how you get Section 504, because if it impacts your need for certain accommodations, impacted your ability to get your educational services. So therefore you had to have things like the stool, or be able to ride the bus that had the seat belts. So that's more of a 504 type accommodation, but it depends on how it's addressed in the school division. There are rare circumstances, not too often, that some students may have both. Some of
Mhm.
my colleagues probably look at me like, what in the world? There are some rare, and I think it's probably phased out to a certain degree now, but in the past we've had that. But an IEP can do exactly what a 504 plan can do for the most part. Uh, IEPs are used to when there's more of, I would say, an educational academic type impact as far as your classes are concerned. 504, if there are medical reasons that students may have some students have chronic illnesses
Mhm.
that will keep them away from school for blocks of time.
Great.
So a 504 covers that students need for support. Uh, if the impact on education is to the degree that the student is significantly falling behind, then there may be a need for an IEP potentially. But ultimately, the eligibility committee, and it's maybe called something else in other places, but in Virginia, we usually say eligibility. They're the ones who make that determination. And there's no one determining person on that committee. It is truly in the way it's supposed to work is it's made up of the parents, the child, if appropriate, the general educator, the special educator, any related service personnel, evaluators, and an administrator who's familiar and can deliver services that have expenses attached to them, persons who can make financial type decisions are at the table.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. That's good to know the differences. So IEPs are more like the educational, academic related, like what's the impact on their actual learning.
Mhm.
And 504 covers, medical needs, like physical accommodations, things like that, right?
And it can be a temporary thing.
Okay.
Yes, it can. 504 can be very temporary. One of our favorite examples is state testing. Kid breaks their writing hand the
Hmm.
day a week before, and that's a temporary situation. That's not permanent.
I see.
Yeah, so you can have a temporary 504.
Okay. All right. Good to know. Well, I learned something today by talking to you, Sheila. Thank you so much for sharing that. Um, do you have any experiences or any instances that come to mind, like in your direct work, where you advocated for a student or advocated for a group of students while when you were teaching and in the educating educator sector, and would you be able to share like what happened and if any changes were made after your influence?
Well, it, in special education, from the time you step in the classroom, you become an advocate.
Great.
Um, my first teaching job, fresh out of college, I was the first teacher for students with emotional disabilities hired in that particular county.
Wow.
No one knew what to expect. Um,
Uh-huh.
I was given a house outside of the main school building, and I had, I think, 5 or 6 students. And because I was near my home, um, one of my mom's best friends was my teacher assistant. And my mom, by that time, she was just doing, we were adults, so she was doing part-time work near the school. And when she would get off early, sometimes she'd stop and get treats for, this is a whole different time and world.
Right, I bet.
But she would stop and get treats and bring them up to the school for me and the kids and everybody.
Oh,
So being in that house outside the regular school building was like the best thing that they could have done for me, because I think it was done because they didn't understand my kids, but we had a great time out there, and I had my own little bus, and it was just so much fun. We had a really, really good time, and the art teacher was out there, and and there it was also an office for an itinerant teacher. So I have very fond memories of that particular time and how to advocate. The advocating really started right then and there, because I had one student that was in my classroom with some significant behavior issues, but we had worked with that young man and had gotten him under control. And he was really good in math.
yeah.
And nobody had I hadn't heard the word inclusion. I didn't know what that was. And I asked one of the somewhat, and this is what special ed teachers have done for years. When it comes to like mainstreaming, they would go to maybe uh, an understanding general ed teacher and say, hey, can my kid come to your class for a little while? You got to keep in mind, this was back years and years ago, late
Mm.
70s. And this particular teacher accepted this young man into her math class. And he was so proud because every day at a certain time, yes, the administration, and rightly so, insisted that an adult accompany him to the class, but didn't have to stay, just had to walk him to the class and then come back and go get him. So he was able to blend in with the other students. So that was one of the first instances of advocacy I really, other than my sister, that I can
Mhm.
really remember, was getting that young man into that math class and making sure. Now some of my other students, because at that particular time they didn't really understand autism,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I certainly did not. Um, and a couple of my students were on that spectrum,
Hmm.
very significantly impacted. And I wasn't able to send those students because people were not prepared. Honestly, I wasn't either. But the ones who were able to get out and be mainstreamed, yes, I would try to keep those good relationships with certain teachers and get them out. So that was really the beginning, and that followed through each of the positions that I had when I was still teaching. And then I went on to I went on to work in corrections.
Oh, okay. Tell us about that. How was that? That's a different that must
Yeah,
have been
that's a
a
different
different
world.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I was a
What?
teacher for
Uh-huh.
in juvenile detention.
Uh-huh.
And it was 8 years out of my career, and I enjoyed it. Those kids appreciated the services that they would receive. Yes, these kids had gotten themselves into trouble and had done some things. And I never forget, these were some pretty, I would say, rough guys, if you understand that description.
Yeah.
Uh, and not definitely not the type that you think would watch a Disney movie. But Friday afternoons, we would reward the other teacher and we would reward students with treats. Again, a different time. I used to, because I love to bake and I love to cook. And I used to make cupcakes and things like that and take them in because they were still human beings.
Right.
Maybe some people and some did disagree with me, but um, Friday afternoon, we would watch a movie. And I remember trying to find movies that would be interesting to 16, 17-year-old boys and girls, but not be inappropriate. And
Hmm.
it's shown just about everything. And my children were young at the time, and my daughter, she was heavy into the Disney World
Oh,
thing.
me
Anything,
too. Disney.
anything Disney.
I was
And
obsessed.
yes, yes. So I had plenty of VHS tapes at
Right.
home.
Oh, still do.
Yes. So I bought one of hers in there. I believe, if I remember correctly, I think it was The Lion King.
Oh, best one.
I have never seen young people so excited. They were singing the songs. These are guys that would never ever go in a movie theater out in on the streets to see a Disney movie. But that was a protected environment, and they felt safe to be children
To be
and
themselves.
people,
Yeah.
yes. And they enjoyed it. They sat there and they sang and they ate their cupcakes and they enjoyed that movie. And then they asked me, "What else do you have?"
Oh,
So yeah. So that's how it started. And I said, it's okay. It's okay to um be a person, enjoy something from your childhood. That's okay. Um, and then I moved on and went into adult corrections as an administrator and traveled the state. I was the assistant state supervisor for correctional education for special ed and gifted ed. And so I've been in maximum security prisons, been in medium, you know,
wow.
travel. And I saw things. I saw things that made me want to come back to the K-12, pre-K 12 level to
Hmm.
try to make a difference. Try and make a difference before young people reach that level. And so my work brought me back. And that was where I was until I retired from K-12 education, was working as a student services director and trying to implement programs and get people hired and support teachers and work with general educators in the world of special education to affect the change, work with parents, just work with parents and try to help parents understand what, and it wasn't always easy.
Of course.
I've had parents that I knew when um, my administrative assistant told me that they were on the phone. I closed the door. I put the phone on speaker because I knew that I was going to get yelled at for about 20 minutes until they felt better. And then after they calmed down, yeah, we get to the business at hand. Uh, that's not work everybody wants to do.
Oh,
It's not. And that's
yeah.
okay. That's okay. Everybody's not cut out to do that. And I understand, I respect it. Whenever I go for any type of medical attention, I always thank the doctors and the nurses because that's not a world I would want to be in. And they look at me sometimes after they find out what I do and say, you know,
Yeah, they say the same thing, right? How do you do what you do?
yes, yes. So, but it's a lifelong commitment. It's something that um, I just feel motivated to continue to do and to be a support system and to help anybody that I can potentially help. It's important to remember you're not always going to get the answers you want. And
Wow.
yeah, you're
Mm,
just not. You're not going to always get the answers you want. There are some situations that we as earthly human creatures cannot fix, but we can try to find ways.
That's
So
the thing. No, that's the thing. It's like everyone, not everyone, but like you see cases where, like a disabled person needs something or like an accommodation, and people just say, "Oh, hold up," or like, "Oh no, we can't do that," like without even trying. Like,
mhm,
like you said, like to see us as humans, like see us as people, like we are talented, we are educated, like we deserve to have like a life that we can fulfill, like to our maximize potential. Like we all have like you said, like our God-given potential, and like we are, like we deserve to exist, we deserve to take up space, and like you said, like we may not have the solutions, but like at least we could try, like meet somewhere in the middle, let's have a conversation, so like I just still can't believe like we're still having this conversation as far as like meeting, getting needs met, like getting, like accommodating and following the law. So but just like hearing your journey, Sheila, like you are such a shining light for the disability community. Like just everything that you went through. I just feel like I just wish there was like a Sheila Bailey in each school or in each school system, or just like just the work that you do, and just like it, like what you did for the kids in the correction, like in the corrections facility, just like you made their day, like every Friday, like it's just what they look forward to, so they could be themselves, express themselves fully and authentically, and as children they're still kids, they deserve that. They shouldn't be put in a box just
mhm.
because of what their current situation is. They still deserve a chance, they deserve as many opportunities as possible.
Well, it's important that we don't throw people away. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, it people can discount you for a lot of reasons. People of color, women, people who have disabilities. You're too tall, you're too short, you're too fat, you're too skinny. You know, someone is always going to judge, and you've got to reach that point where you are comfortable in your own skin and what you're willing to put out into the world. And it's always good, it to have form that good, supportive, safe space, that safe team, whether it's people in your family, your church, your community, your school, wherever, it doesn't matter, as long
Mhm.
as you have some support team that can advocate for you and know that you're important, and what you want to
Mhm.
share and what you have to say is relevant. And I think that's what I really enjoy about this type of platform, is because it gives an opportunity for people to have a real in-depth conversation and talk about what's important and how to continue to advocate. Every year in July, through the national international organization CASE and CEC,
Mhm.
we go up to DC in July.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we do. And we have a Capitol Hill Day. I've been doing that for, oh my goodness.
Oh, nice. Like your lobby day or advocacy day.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And we visit all of our state representatives. We go into Senate offices and we talk about the needs of the disabled population. It is hot. July in DC is then and I'm talking about temperature now.
hmm
It
But
is really
yeah.
hot, but you dress cool and go in and have some real good conversation. I remember the first year I did that, I was so intimidated, so thinking that who am I? I'm just one individual. I'm just one person to go and sit with these people.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out how wrong I was, how totally wrong I was. Um, we don't always get to meet with some do, some do not,
Uh-huh.
the actual representative or the actual senator. But these folks have people on their team. They have young people who are, and they're really young, who are the experts in the field of education as far as their work with that particular senator or representative. And they go back and advise that person. So sitting down and having that conversation and telling your story is very important. They like to hear stories and how things could get better. Don't just take problems, you take some potential solutions. Yes, we all need funding. We know we need funding. But what has the dollars that you've already gotten? What have you been able to do with that? And what could more dollars do? So there's so many ways that we can all get involved, all advocate, all be a part of, and follow up, email, call. We all have complaints, but sometimes it's good to take some real good solid ideas and some thank yous.
Right? Keep saying the thank yous, keep saying
Yeah.
the praise, and we keep on moving, right? Wow. Just wow. I'm just so glad that you're here with us and like you're sharing your beautiful story, you're sharing your beautiful journey. I know we have to wrap up
Mhm.
in a few minutes, but it's two-part question I have. Any final thoughts that you have or any advice for current educators, current administrators, so that they could better serve and advocate for disabled students? That's the first part. And any advice you have for parents for kids of kids that are just starting school, and what they could expect or how they could advocate for their students if they're considering special education, or if they are disabled but not necessarily, but if they have want to do a 504 plan, like what um would you be able to comment on that?
Well, I will start with those persons who are considering special education as a career or currently in special education.
Mhm.
The statistics are just not good for people entering. We have a tremendous shortage. When I first started, um, I had to apply for jobs and hope that I would get hired. Now, graduating from a 4-year university with a degree in special education, they'd be knocking the door down because it is so difficult to get people into the classroom and to get them to stay, whether a teacher or an administrator. It is a challenge because it's tough out here. The COVID period did not help. It made that a bad situation even worse. So now we're into COVID recovery. So, but with all the negative that we can talk about, the rewards are still there when you go into a field like special education,
Mhm.
exceptional education. The rewards are definitely there. You can make a difference. If you're the person who wants to make a difference, then you can make a difference in this field. It's tough, it's challenging, but you can make a difference and you can be that person. So I would say look at your state organizations, look at your mentor teachers, your mentor administrators, look to those persons for guidance and help and support in getting through. And one day you will become one of those that others look up to. I'm so happy whenever I hear from a person who either worked in the division that I was in, or persons that I may have taught. I did teach at university level. I enjoyed it. And if I hear from them, and quite frequently I do, then that makes me really happy, especially if they're still in the field. Get in the field, stay in the field. It's hard, but you can do it. And persons like myself, we're here to help. We're not, I'm here to help. I know it's tough, but I am here to help. As far as parents are concerned, don't listen to anybody that tell you that educators are not there to help your child. Do yourself a favor and not listen to them. It's not true. It is not true. Educators are there to help your child. It may not be what you think, because I've had some parents that sit down and they see the list of accommodations that are possible, and they treat it like a smorgasbord. Oh, I want to tie a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Well, how do you ever know what's going to work? If you think that throwing the whole kitchen sink at your child is the answer, you don't know what's going to work. You have no idea. And what we like to do is, if you suspect a disability, talk to your person at your school, your administrator, the teacher, to have a conversation, listen, work with people, work with the teachers and the administrators. They're not your enemy. They're not your enemy. Now, everybody's not at the same level. So there may be some administrators that are better at, support and things like that than others, but that's just human nature. They're better, when you go to the dentist, there's some dentists that are better than other dentists. So I can't tell you that everybody's at the same level.
Right.
Teachers are the same way. There are amazing teachers. There are teachers that are still in the learning process. So work with them. Work with them. You are your child's best advocate. You know more about your child than anybody else. So work with the teachers, work with the school, work with the staff. Be that present person who's there, who has a listening ear, who's open, who's going to share exactly what's going on with your child, and listen to what teachers have to say. So I think in conclusion, that is the best advice I can give, is to be there and know it's not going to all be perfect. The journey is long. It is difficult. There are many rough spots. There are many positives. Especially when you get to the point where working with a school, or even you can bring that to the table and say, my child loves to sing or loves to draw, or my child's great at math, or my child's a wonderful speller. Okay, great. That is something that we need to know, so we can build upon that.
Right.
But we need to know about the struggles too, and work on those, because we all have them, if you tell the truth.
We all have them. Yeah. Just like how everyone says, it takes a village to raise a child, right?
And to educate them.
And to educate them. And it's a collective effort.
Mhm.
It's a team effort. But it's just to see the outcomes, it's just so worth it, because like like children deserve education. Children deserve access, so they, like you said, they can live up to their full potential and lead a successful, productive, happy life.
Yes, and they need the young people. We all need tools, and we need to understand how to succeed and we need to understand how to fail. And I've had parents tell me, well, I don't want them to fail. Well, how will they learn?
They don't fail, right?
I had to fall on my face a few times, more times than I care to remember. But those failures were also lessons.
Exactly.
Mhm.
We don't have to fear failure.
No, it's gonna.
It's gonna happen. It's all part of the process. Wow. Any last thoughts? Any last minute things you'd like to
Um,
share?
just highly appreciative of this opportunity. Very thankful. It has been. You've made it very comfortable, Samantha.
Oh,
Have a
I'm so
conversation.
glad.
So thank you very much. This is sort of a new world for me, but it's one that I like. I like this world.
Yay! I'm so glad you could be with us today and be a guest on the Little Perspective podcast. Your story is something that really needs to be shared, something that really needs to be told. And I'm so glad we could have the opportunity to bring you on and share your beautiful, powerful story. Thank you again, Sheila. And thank you, audience, for um, coming in today and hearing Sheila's powerful story and hear about the amazing woman that she is. We will be back with another episode in just a couple of weeks. Thanks again, everyone, and have a good night.